Ever think about like how long you have to actually take legal action after something happens?
Mm-hmm.
Like if your car gets totaled,
Yeah.
but the person at fault, they just drag their feet for years.
Mm-hmm.
Can you still get compensation?
Oh, interesting.
It's something that makes this Supreme Court case here in the Philippines
Right.
so interesting. It actually went viral because it really changed the game for these
Sure.
kinds of situations.
It definitely sent shockwaves, I think, through the legal and insurance communities.
Yeah.
The case we're diving into today is Filcon Ready Mixed Inc. and Gilbert S. Vergara versus UCPB General Insurance Company Inc.
Okay.
GR No. 229877, decided on July 15th, 2020.
Okay, so before we get into all the legal twists and turns and all that,
Right.
let's set the scene. What actually happened?
Yeah.
What led to this whole showdown?
So imagine this. It's November 16th, 2007 in Quezon City.
Okay.
Marco Gutang's Honda Civic is parked, minding its own business, when suddenly a runaway cement mixer slams into it. Oh, wow.
We're not talking fender bender here.
Oh, no.
This thing is totaled.
Wow. Talk about a bad day.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that cement mixer wasn't supposed to be doing its own thing.
Not quite. It was owned by Filcon Ready Mixed Inc.
Okay.
and driven by Gilbert S. Vergara.
Okay.
And it seems like they left it running, maybe didn't secure the brakes properly, and it rolled backwards down an incline.
Oh, no.
Right into poor Gutang's car.
Okay, so classic accident scenario.
Yeah.
But Gutang's got insurance, though, right?
He does.
So UCPB General Insurance
Right.
just pays for the repairs. End of story.
Not so fast.
Okay.
UCPB did pay up. It was a hefty P195,409.54 for the repairs.
Wow.
But here's where things get interesting. They then exercised their right to go after the parties at fault,
Okay.
Filcon and Vergara,
Right.
to get that money back.
Okay.
And this is what's called legal subrogation.
Legal subrogation sounds like a mouthful.
Yeah.
What does that mean in plain English? Basically, UCPB is stepping into Gutang's shoes,
Okay.
legally speaking.
All right.
They're taking on his right to demand compensation from those who caused the damage.
Okay.
So think of it as, we fixed your car, now it's our turn to get paid back by the people who mess it up.
Got it. So it's not just about the car anymore. It's about who foots the bill for the repairs.
Exactly.
Did UCPB act quickly enough, though? I mean, there are time limits on these things, right?
You're absolutely right. That's where the concept of prescription comes in.
Okay.
It's basically like a legal deadline. If you don't file a claim within a certain time frame, you lose your right to do so.
Yeah.
And this is what trips up a lot of people, even big companies like UCPB.
Okay, so there's a ticking clock here.
Right.
Walk us through what UCPB did and when.
Sure. They sent a demand letter to Filcon and Vergara on September 1st, 2011,
Okay.
and followed up by filing a lawsuit on February 1st, 2012. Seems pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah. I mean, they took action within a few years of the accident.
Yeah.
What's the problem? Why is this even a Supreme Court case?
Well, the lower courts, both the Metropolitan Trial Court and the Regional Trial Court, sided with Filcon and Vergara.
What?
They ruled that UCPB waited too long to file the case.
Really?
Essentially saying that their claim was time-barred.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
How could that be? They didn't wait that long.
Well, here's the catch. The lower courts applied the 4-year prescription period for quasi-delicts to this case.
Quasi-delict.
It's a legal term, basically, for actions that cause harm but aren't intentional crimes.
Oh, okay.
So they basically said, this was negligence, you had 4 years, you missed it.
So UCPB just loses out on over P195,000 because of a technicality.
Yeah.
That seems pretty unfair.
Well, they weren't about to give up that easily. They took their case to the Supreme Court,
Okay.
arguing that a different prescription period should apply, the 10-year one,
Right.
for obligations created by law. Their argument was that because their right to claim came from legal subrogation, it wasn't subject to the same strict deadline as the original accident.
Okay, now this is where it starts to get really interesting.
Right.
They're basically saying, hey, our rights come from a different source, so different rules apply.
Exactly.
Did this argument hold water?
Well, to make things even more complicated, there was a previous Supreme Court case, vector shipping, which seemed to support ECPB's argument. Everyone thought they had a slam dunk case.
Yeah.
But Supreme Court is full of surprises.
Uh-oh. That but usually means things are about to get messy.
It does.
What did the Supreme Court decide?
In a twist that shocked a lot of people, they denied the petition.
Denied. Does that mean UCPB is out of luck after all?
It's not that simple. They actually ruled in favor of UCPB, but they also overturned the vector shipping precedent.
Whoa, hold on. So they win, but the rule they relied on gets thrown out. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's a fascinating legal maneuver.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court basically said, yes, in this specific case, you filed before the rules changed, so you're good.
Okay.
But from now on, the old rule doesn't apply.
Oh, wow.
They clarified that an insurer's right through subrogation doesn't magically reset the clock to a full 10 years.
Okay, so they got a win, but it was a close call. They were literally saved by the bell. What does this new interpretation mean for insurance companies or for regular folks like us moving forward?
It's a wake-up call for everyone involved. Insurance companies used to have, a relatively comfortable window to investigate and file claims.
Right.
Now they're essentially on the same timeline as the person they're insuring, and this could drastically change how they handle things.
I bet. If they're under more pressure to move quickly, it could affect, how thorough their investigations are, how they negotiate with other parties, all sorts of things.
Absolutely. And for those of us who rely on insurance, it means we can't just sit back and assume the insurance company will take care of everything. We need to be proactive, document everything, and stay informed about the process.
So basically, treat it like the clock is ticking from the moment the incident happens, not when the insurance company gets involved.
Exactly. The more informed you are about your rights and obligations, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself. This case really highlights the importance of understanding these legal concepts, even if you think they don't apply to you.
That's what the deep dive is all about. Knowledge is power, especially in situations like this, where things can get very complicated very quickly.
Speaking of complicated, let's unpack some of the key legal doctrines that are at play here, not just in this specific case, but in the broader legal landscape.
Doctrines. Sounds a bit heavy. Can we make this relatable for our listeners?
Absolutely. Think of legal doctrines as the rules of the game. They're established principles that courts rely on to make decisions.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are the big players in this game?
Well, one of the most prominent is legal subrogation, which we've been talking about. It's the mechanism that allows the insurance company to step in and fight for compensation on your behalf.
Right. They're like your legal champion. What else?
Then there's prescription, that deadline we talked about. This is crucial because it determines how long you have to take legal action. Different types of cases have different prescription periods.
And in this case, that shift from 10 years to 4 years was a real game changer. Any other important doctrines we should know about?
While it's not explicitly mentioned in the ruling, the concept of negligence is at the heart of this whole case. It's a legal term that basically means someone failed to exercise reasonable care, and that failure resulted in harm.
So in the cement mixer scenario, leaving it unattended on an incline would be considered negligence because a reasonable person would have taken precautions to prevent it from rolling away.
Exactly. Proving negligence was essential for UCPB to have any claim against Filcon and Vergara in the first place.
So even though the case ultimately hinged on the question of prescription, the underlying issue of negligence was still the foundation of the entire legal battle. It's like a chain reaction.
Precisely. And that's why understanding these legal doctrines is so important. They're the building blocks of how the legal system works.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. But how does this case fit into the broader trends of the Philippine legal system? Is this a one-off situation, or is it indicative of something larger?
That's a fantastic question. This case, while seemingly specific to insurance claims, actually reflects some major shifts happening within the Philippine legal landscape.
Ooh, inside scoop. Fill us in.
One major trend is the increasing emphasis on efficiency and expediency. Courts are swamped with cases,
Right.
and there's a real push to streamline the process and resolve disputes more quickly.
Okay.
The shift to a shorter prescription period for subrogation claims could be seen as part of that effort to speed things up.
So get things moving. Don't let cases drag on for years and years. What else is happening?
Another big concern is access to justice. The Philippine legal system is notoriously complex, and navigating it can be a nightmare, especially for people who don't have a lot of resources or legal knowledge.
Right.
This case really highlights the importance of legal awareness and education.
Right, because if you don't even know your rights or the rules of the game, how can you possibly play effectively?
Exactly. Cases like this show us how crucial it is to stay informed and seek expert legal advice when needed.
Which is where we come in. The deep dive is all about making these complex topics accessible and empowering our listeners with knowledge.
Absolutely. We're taking you behind the scenes of the legal world and showing you how it actually works.
And hopefully having some fun along the way. Learning doesn't have to be dry and boring.
Couldn't agree more.
Mm.
Before we wrap up, let's bring it back to you, our listener. What are some key takeaways from this case that you can apply to your own life?
This all sounds very interesting and informative, but how does it relate to me personally? What should I be thinking about after listening to this discussion?
First and foremost, remember those legal timelines. Whether it's an insurance claim, a contract dispute, or any other legal matter, knowing how long you have to take action is crucial.
Don't let that clock run out.
Exactly. Second, be proactive. Don't just assume someone else will handle everything for you. Gather information, document everything, and communicate clearly with all parties involved.
Be your own advocate.
And finally, remember that the legal landscape is constantly evolving. Laws and precedents change, so it's important to stay informed and seek expert advice when needed.
Don't rely on outdated information. The rules of the game can change, so stay up to date.
Excellent point. This case is a perfect example of that. What was considered a safe bet under the vector shipping precedent is now a whole different ballgame.
Okay, I'm definitely getting the message here. Time matters, be proactive, and stay informed.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Now, before we move to the last part of our deep dive into this intriguing Supreme Court case, we've uncovered a lot today, haven't we?
We sure have. From the details of the cement mixer incident to the complexities of legal subrogation, prescription, and negligence,
Right.
we've covered a lot of ground.
And most importantly, we've given you, our listener, the tools to navigate these tricky legal waters with more confidence. Now, before we move on to the final part of our discussion, I have a question for you to ponder. What other situations can you think of where someone might step into another's legal shoes, similar to this concept of legal subrogation we've been talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question to chew on. It's easy to get caught up in the specifics of a case
Right.
and kind of forget that these legal concepts can pop up in all sorts of unexpected places.
Absolutely. Subrogation in particular is a versatile tool that can be applied in various areas of law,
Yeah.
often when one party assumes the rights or responsibilities of another.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give us some examples. Make this practical for our listeners. Besides insurance, where else might we encounter subrogation in everyday life?
Okay, so let's say you're a kind soul who co-signs a loan for a friend. If your friend, the borrower, can't repay the loan, the lender can come knocking on your door to collect the debt.
Oh, that's a scary thought. So as a cosigner, you're on the hook if the main borrower defaults.
Exactly. But here's where subrogation comes in.
Okay.
If you, the guarantor, end up paying off the loan,
Right.
you can then step into the lender's shoes and demand reimbursement from your friend, the original borrower.
Okay.
You're essentially taking over the lender's right to collect the debt.
So you're not just stuck holding the bag.
Right.
You have legal recourse to recover your losses from the person who's actually supposed to pay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What other examples can you think of?
Let's venture into the world of inheritance.
Okay.
Imagine someone passes away without a will,
Okay.
and their estate is divided among their heirs.
Okay.
Now, suppose one of those heirs had received a large gift from the deceased while they were still alive.
Okay. Like an early inheritance.
Precisely. The other heirs might argue that this gift should have been considered an advance on their inheritance. They could then go to court and try to have the value of that gift deducted from the share of the heir who received it.
Whoa. So it's a way to balance things out and ensure everyone gets their fair share?
Exactly.
I never thought of it that way. It sounds like subrogation can get pretty complex,
Right.
especially when you're dealing with, family matters and inheritances.
It definitely can. But as the Filcon versus UCPB case shows us,
Right.
subrogation paired with the concept of prescription
Yeah.
can have significant implications, especially when it comes to recovering losses.
Right. And the big takeaway here is don't just assume you understand these concepts.
Right.
If you ever find yourself in a situation where subrogation or prescription might apply,
Yeah.
get advice from a legal professional
Right?
to make sure your rights are protected. Don't try to be your own lawyer.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into this fascinating Supreme Court case.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
We sure have, from a runaway cement mixer to the intricate workings of legal doctrines like subrogation, prescription, and negligence.
Right.
We've explored how seemingly simple situations can become incredibly complex within the legal system.
And most importantly, we've armed you, our listener, with a better understanding of how these concepts can impact your life.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power, and we hope you feel more empowered to navigate these situations should they ever arise.
That's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive, taking complex topics and breaking them down in a way that's engaging, informative, and, dare I say, even a little bit entertaining.
We like to think so. Learning doesn't have to be a chore.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this episode, we want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Think beyond legal disputes for a moment. How might the principles of subrogation and prescription apply in other areas of your life? Maybe in personal relationships, financial decisions, or even everyday interactions. It's something to think about.
We'd love to hear your insights. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments or by rating this episode.
Yeah.
We always appreciate hearing from you.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Philippine law, make sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more fascinating explorations of intriguing topics. We've got a whole lineup of deep dives planned, covering everything from science and technology to history and culture.
We're your guides to the depths of knowledge, always ready to take on a new challenge.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.